But Bonnie is not a member. Did you, if you mentioned her name?
Right, I'm not a member, but Wayne is.
Yeah.
Gary, I don't know if it's different for different state departments, but I recall a number of years ago being on a state health planning commission meeting and understanding that ex officio allows for the meeting to get started. But I'm not the expert, so.
Yeah, no, I think you can be counted for quorum purposes. The question is whether the total number of people is sufficient to meet that number.
Oh,
I misplaced my binder with the bylaws, so I'm going to find it in my emails. It'll take me a moment. Yeah, so the last version I'm finding online says it's actually a majority of the sitting voting members for quorum.
okay. So we do not have a quorum of the sitting voting members present.
Oh, but there, yeah, you've got 4, right? 4 out of 7?
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right.
Because you're
That's-
missing Roberta, Keahi, and Billy, and there are 4 of you here, so I think you're good.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I miscounted.
Doesn't Shane count in the vote?
Doesn't what? Excuse me.
Doesn't Shane count towards that total?
Don't think so.
No? Okay.
No, he just attends. He's not actually on the board.
Okay, so I propose we work our way through the agenda and work around any topics that require voting. So
Sure.
okay with us, just to get going. And hopefully Billy can be tracked down and join us at some point. So anyway, mahalo everybody for attending. Roberta cannot attend the meeting tonight. I was hoping that I would get through my vice chair role with having to chair a meeting, but obviously that plan didn't work out in the end. So I will handle it for the night. And for the minutes, note that it's 5:21 and we're now officially calling the meeting to order. First topic is public comment on any of the agenda items. And I wanted to ask Carrie, did we get any written testimony submitted?
There's none for either written or oral.
Okay, no oral testimony as well. Okay. If that's the case, we move on to number 3 in the agenda, approval minutes from the April 6th meeting. First of all, I'll ask, are there any changes that anybody would like to see in the minutes? They looked okay to me.
No, I'm fine with the minutes.
Okay. If that's the case, can I get a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
I'll second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion?
No.
If not, everybody who approves, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. By unanimous vote, we've all adopted the minutes from the April 6th, 2021 meeting. On to Kahukamana report. And there is a written report, but maybe Greg, you can quickly capture the essence
Sure.
of that report for us.
Sure. So everyone had a chance to review Shane's report. And in the report, he includes their official comments on the CSO site decommissioning plan. Actually, it also included, they covered the environmental assessment as well, or at least discussed it as well. But this statement applies specifically to their review of the site decommissioning plan. They expressed no concerns about the SDP as long as the preferred alternative of complete removal and full restoration is what is being done. But they also have advised PSI to please continue to extend the outreach in their community consultation. And if, as a result of that outreach, anything about the SDP, the site decommissioning plan, changes, they've asked for an update on that. The next up for them will be beginning to review the Hokukea decommissioning, site decommissioning plan, which is scheduled for this Thursday. As you see, they also discuss the passing of Kahukamana member Kalepa Babayan. They are in discussions now about candidates to replace Kalepa. Kalepa not only served on Kahukamana, but he was also the representative on the design review committee that also is another body that's in place to review the decommissioning plans. So they are having to decide how they're going to fill that position on the design review committee, or what we call the DRC, for the decommissioning projects as well. So they have not made any recommendations or nominations, if you will. They typically will vet their own nominations and then bring that forward to Mauna Kea Management Board for concurrence. So that was the extent of the meeting. It was a good meeting, answered all of their questions regarding the site decommissioning plan, which actually ended up being quite minimal, except for as long as the preferred alternative was the alternative that was going to be pursued.
Any questions or comments from the other board members? All right. If not, we'll move on to the executive director's report. Over to Greg again.
Thank you. So there's several items I want to update the board members on. The first set of items has to do with our planning updates. I'll start off with the master plan, the work that we've been doing on the master plan. That internal draft master plan, or what we refer to as the IDMP, is still undergoing revisions. We're finalizing those revisions based on the feedback that was obtained during our targeted outreach between November 2020 and March 2021. We are still on target for public consultation on that revised draft master plan to begin in June. What will happen is that draft master plan will be issued. We'll be scheduling public open houses, probably virtually at this point still. But there will be additional outreach to our advisory groups and other targeted groups so that we met with previously to review the changes that were made based on the initial set of feedback that we received. What will happen is that I'm sure there will be more revisions after the public process, at which time we will be working with the regents to assure their comfort with the draft master plan, so that eventually the target is to get this draft master plan and the CMP to the regents in January of next year for their review, official review and approval. Regarding the comprehensive management plan, or the CMP, last Friday, the first step of the updating of the CMP, which is what's called an outcome analysis report, or the OAR. That last Friday, that draft OAR was issued for public comment from key stakeholders. It is as I said, the first step in updating the CMP, and it's somewhat akin to a self-evaluation of our progress in implementing the CMP. So what we've done is we've done our own self-assessment on how we have progressed on the 103 management actions contained in the CMP. And we have integrated the findings of the Kuivalu report as well, based on our own review of the report, as well as our meeting with Dawn and her team. And so that draft was sent to 70+ groups and individuals on Friday. And these are agencies, individuals, and different stakeholders who were consulted on the draft master plan earlier this year. So we know that many of them also were interested in the status of the comprehensive management plan update as well. So we sent it to them. PSI is scheduling follow-up meetings with those groups. We will have a follow-up meeting with them ourselves as Mauna Kea Management Board as part of the process. Once the OAR is the feedback that we get is consolidated, we will be then using that to update the actual comprehensive management plan. And by updating the CMP, what we mean is there could be consolidation of management actions, refinement of management actions, and perhaps some elimination of certain management actions that called, for example, for studies that have already been completed. So based on the OAR and the feedback, we will then begin the actual updating of the CMP. That update is scheduled, at least a draft of that is scheduled for this fall. It's going to be a push to get to that point, but we are pushing to try to hit that target. So that's updates on our planning work. I have several other updates to provide, but maybe I should stop and just see if there's questions on that component first.
Well, Greg, I'm looking at a PSI chart, I think the latest one that they showed a few months ago, that had region consideration of the master plan roughly 6-9 months ahead of the CMP update. So you're now saying they're both going to be considered in concurrence at a future regent meeting?
Formally considered in concurrence in the beginning of next year. The regents will be convening another permitted interaction group, and we will be working with that permitted interaction group between now and next year in getting regent input on the updated master plan and the CMP. So while the master plan remains ahead of schedule on as compared to the CMP, they won't formally go to the regents for consideration until early part of next year, and they'll go together. And that's based on their request.
Okay, and then the CMP update goes to the land board?
Yeah, after it's done with the regents, it goes to the land board.
And the EIS is the other piece of the puzzle.
That would start probably, well, I mean, as you know, we already have started parts of it. We have to look at sort of where we actually start to re-engage that process as the CMP, in particular the CMP, but the CMP and the master plan roll out.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg on any of that? Okay, if not,
Okay.
keep going.
So next item I want to update folks on is the our community engagement consultation activities regarding various management initiatives and strategic initiatives. I have spoken to you folks and actually showed you folks an early version of our planning chart, our planning tool that we have created. I'd like to pull that up and just give you sort of an update and use that as kind of a visual to help me sort of talk us through this. Carrie, am I allowed to share? Could you let me share, please?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I know this is rather small. I'm sorry. This is I'm working on off of a Google Doc here. So, you know, Doug, I think you had asked a while ago, you know, if there could be a kind of a schedule. And so this is the tool that we've put together. And what I want to show you first of all is this is a tool that helps us, that we're using to schedule all of the various reviews that need to be scheduled by different entities, including MKMB Management Board. Hang on a second, I'm trying to. Okay, so, and I know it's small, I'm sorry, but I just want to give you folks a sense of sort of where things are at. So what you're looking at here is a list of the master list of all the documents related to all the different management activities and strategic initiatives that we are seeking community input on through our advisory bodies. As you folks know, MKMB Management Board, Kahuku-Mauna, and our Environment Committee all represent one step in our process for soliciting community input on various activities. So this is the universe of things that we have identified that need to come before the various boards in the next 6 to 8 to 9 months. And this list is not yet complete because we are still adding things to the list. So you can see it's pretty extensive and pretty daunting, but we have the ability, based on the work that Carrie and others have done, to use this list in different ways. I'll just sort of pull down what we're looking at with Mauna Kea Management Board, where we're at with these various initiatives. So these are the documents, these are the projects that still need to be reviewed. These are the documents that still need to be reviewed, target dates that we're shooting for, when it actually gets scheduled and whatnot. So Carrie and I and several others who are part of these various projects are working on filling in this column here in terms of when we're shooting to have these documents reviewed by the various committees. Obviously, Mauna Kea Management Board is always the last step in this whole process. So in the case of our decommissionings, we have to go through the Environment Committee, the Kahukumana, and then the Design Review Committee. Other projects just require Environment Committee and Kahukumana. I just wanted to sort of give you folks sort of an idea of sort of the breadth and scope of what we are looking at, and what really, quite frankly, what's involved in managing Mauna Kea. It is a large task that involves multiple, not just entities, but multiple moving parts. Management of these public lands is quite complicated and complex, but nonetheless is exactly what these lands call for. So what we can expect at Mauna Kea Management Board, tonight we'll be doing the cesspools project. Hopefully we'll get through that tonight. But what we'll be looking at is sort of a next tranche of activities, if you will be Hokukea, documents related to the Hokukea decommissioning. And that's sort of the next tranche of stuff that we're going to start to tee up. And again, there will be other projects that will get added to this list over time. So we are making progress. You can see here, we're not quite as far along with Mauna Kea Management Board as we might be with, for example, Kahukumana, but that's just because we have to go through these consultations with Kahukumana and Environment Committee and the DRC before we bring them to the Mauna Kea Management Board. So we can sort this by project, by committee, and whatnot. But there's a method to the madness, is what I like to say. I owe a lot of appreciation to the work that Carrie and Lagaya and PSI and others have done to help us get to this point. And I should say that this is only one part of what you're looking at here, is only one part of our complete master schedule, which involves a whole bunch of other things as well. Those things don't necessarily involve tracking community consultation reviews. This tool here is specific to help us with tracking and scheduling that work. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
Greg, how do you quantify progress in this chart? I notice it's essentially all 100%.
If we've completed a review and that group has given their blessing to the project or to the documents that they've reviewed, then that's we've completed that as 100%.
Okay. Does a blank mean you haven't worked on it at all?
Yeah, the blank means, take for example, here we're looking at Hokukea draft site decommissioning plan. We had hoped to get that scheduled by the April 1st. With Kahukumana, it's being scheduled for this Thursday. So we're behind schedule on that. And that'll be their first review of it.
So Greg, for clarification, by the time, the only time it becomes a public document is when the materials become available for the board meeting?
Actually, the draft IDMP, the internal draft master plan, you know, we shared that with a number of groups, and we know that that has been shared outside of those groups. We just didn't post it publicly because it was a draft, and we knew that there was going to be additional changes made to it. With the draft OER, same thing. We have shared it. We're not posting it, but we know that folks that we have shared it with will be sharing it with other groups as well.
At what point would a member of the general public have access to any or all of the documents?
In June, they would have access to the master plan, the draft master plan. For the CMP, it would be later this year.
Thank you.
So I'm still a little confused, Greg, what the progress that seems to be more an indication of completion as opposed to a percent of the project that's actually done.
Yeah, exactly. That's just progress on that particular step.
Yeah, and I would say, Doug, this is a committee tracking chart. This is
Right.
not the Gantt chart for the
Right.
projects, which is a whole other animal.
Okay.
Thank you, Bonnie. That's a good clarification.
Okay. Other comments or questions for Greg?
Okay,
Okay. That's good.
let me move on then. Update on our director recruitment. The selection advisory committee completed work on developing the evaluation rubric and the interview questions that we were required to develop last week. Those have been sent today to our Human Resources and EEO officer for review. The rubric itself and the interview questions have to be approved by HR and EEO. Once those are approved, the committee can actually begin reviewing the applications. So we
I'm sorry,
hope.
Greg, what did you call that position? Was there a name change?
No, I just said the director position.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a director of stewardship programs
Yeah.
is what it's called. Yeah. So we hope to be able to begin scheduling review of the actual applications in a week or so. We've received confirmation from HR and EEO that this is a priority for them and that they will be pushing their review forward to the top of their list. So the actual process will begin hopefully in a week or so. Any questions on that? Okay. One sort of operational thing that we've initiated work on is we've initiated some work on updating our inventory as well as our plan for signage on the Mauna. With the passage of the administrative rules and sort of a variety of other factors, it was highly recommended and we agreed that we take a look at ensuring that our signage is properly warning the public and people who go, especially up to the summit, of the particular dangers of this place, as well as educating them on the specialness of this place. And so the CMS staff, the MKSS staff have been working on updating the initial inventory. We've done the physical work in terms of locating and documenting all the signs on the Mauna. So the inventory is actually now being updated. We will start with the improvements that we want to make with the signage. We will start at the Visitor Information Station, as well as at the beginning of the gravel road, where we're going to try to simplify some of the signage and really make sure we're highlighting the key points that we're needing to emphasize with the public. So this is going to be a long-term sort of process, but as the pieces come together, those plans will be going through our internal review process as well. And then the last thing is, I can't remember. I think I did send to you folks the link for our new Mauna Kea Stewardship website. Did you all have a chance to see that?
Yeah, I had a look.
Yeah. Let me just pull it up real quick. This is a temporary website. The work that we're doing involves with this creation of the Center of Mauna Kea Stewardship and the bringing together of the Office of Mauna Kea Management and Mauna Kea Support Services. What we're needing to do is basically pull in information from about 4 or 5 different websites that the two entities manage. And there's a lot of functionality that has been built into some of these websites, as well as that we need to build into our new website that still needs to be considered. So this is a temporary website. It's kind of the landing page that we're directing people to. And all the links go back to the original websites. Like this one goes back to Office of Mauna Kea Management. And there's a banner on the websites explaining what is going on with the restructuring, as well as with the work that we're doing to bring together all of these websites. So we have a team of internal people working on it, and assisted by our UH webmaster, UH Hilo webmaster, as well as our UH system communications people. So we're excited about sort of the rebranding of this for the Center of Mauna Kea Stewardship, but this is just sort of the first step in that process. Encourage you to take some time and spending on the website. Oh, go ahead.
Are the other sort of functionally linked UH websites also being sort of revamped in the same spirit to make it all have one look and feel?
Yeah, eventually some of those other websites will go away, is what will happen.
Okay, I noticed, for example, IFA, I think, is undergoing a major website upgrade. Does that have anything to do with CMS?
No. That means IFA would have its own website. We just want to link, make sure we're linked there, as would email.
Okay.
But eventually the Office of Mauna Kea Management website would transition into this.
Right, that makes sense. Okay,
So
questions for Greg?
Yeah, that concludes my report.
Okay, if no questions, I was waiting for Billy. We have 4 of 7. Are we allowed to go ahead and consider the cesspool?
Yes. So I did review the bylaws, and it says the concurrence of 4 voting members shall be necessary to make any action of the board valid. And I believe you have 4 voting members. So as long as the votes are unanimous, you could take decisions tonight.
Okay. In that case, and I want to honor the time that we have for our guest speakers for the presentation about the proposal. I want to go and just move on to that next agenda item. So that would be 6A, review and approval of cesspool closures project proposal. And as I understand, it's going to be David Longboard and Stuart that will make a presentation. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. So Carrie, can you let Dave and Stuart in, please?
Stuart's on vacation. He won't make it tonight, but
Okay.
oh, no, there he is.
He's there.
Yeah.
So,
Die Hard.
We need to have a talking to Stuart about what vacation means. This is the second meeting I've seen him at in 2 days.
Well, he said yesterday he wouldn't do it again, but here he is.
I was able to join in. These two projects are important, but I promise not to make any more meetings while off island.
Okay, so you all have had the opportunity to review the cesspool project proposal. I briefed you folks on the importance of this project and what we're trying to do or needing to do with this project. I do need to say that earlier this afternoon, David, and he'll talk about it, did have to update the document that you folks reviewed with some additional, to integrate some additional comments from the Environment Committee. And he can review what those changes are. I don't think they're substantive, but David will review that. But Dave is here to review the project, answer questions, so that we feel comfortable with recommending its approval to move forward. So Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Greg, and thanks to all of you for taking the time to look at this tonight. So I'll say just a couple words about the origins of this project and then go ahead and share the proposal and just walk through really quickly. As I think most of you know, the EPA adopted rules they were effective in 2005, requiring the closure of large capacity cesspools. And at that time, MKSS engaged an engineer and went through a process with the engineer and Department of Health and through Department of Health with EPA to identify large capacity cesspools at HP and get those closed. The cesspools that we're talking about tonight at HP are cesspools that were determined at that time not to be large capacity. 3 remained active, 2 remained active, 1 was shut down somewhere along the way, but is still open. The 4th cesspool we're talking about tonight is at the James Clerk Maxwell Telescope, which received back from the British government that built and operated it for several decades when they left Hawaii in 2014. We don't know the details of the process they went through, but it's another one that serves a few people every day. But one, we don't want to be discharging untreated waste into the mountain. It's not the right thing to do. And 2, we understand from our attorneys that it is really not prudent to be operating a cesspool at anything other than a single family residence at this point. And so we are treating this project as if these cesspools were in violation of the rules, and we're keeping the EPA posted as we work through the closure process. So with that, I will share the proposal and just walk through quickly. So, as I said, 4 cesspools, 3 at HP, 1 at the summit at JCMT. There's a UH exemption for the environmental review statute for this type of work. We anticipate that the process with DLNR will be a site plan approval. We've had an oral inquiry to them on that, and we'll follow that up in writing, and then with the site plan approval application. It'll also require permitting from the Department of Health, and we're working with the engineer on that. We have a proposed completion date out toward the end of the year. This reflects the time required to work through this process that we're finishing tonight, and then the permitting process, procuring a contractor for portions of the work, some lead time to order a couple of holding tanks from the mainland. We hope to be done well before December, but we needed to have a set of projections that we could share with the EPA that reflected a sort of a worst plausible case scenario. So that's what that date is. Estimated hard cost is $190,000. Again, we hope to pare that down as we work through, partly by using internal labor and partly by trying to manage the procurement process to get the best deal we can on the contractor's work. Total size and area, basically 4 cesspools, each of which is a hole in the ground about 8 feet in diameter. Permitting we've talked about, geology and climate you're familiar with. This next section on flora, fauna, and ecology and water resources. This is where Jessica Kirkpatrick and Jesse Iben and the Environment Committee caught an error in the proposal as we originally submitted it. And that was that we had mistakenly believed that there were not WECU bugs present at the JCMT site. There are. So the recommendation from Jessica and Jesse and the Environment Committee was do a baseline survey of bug activity up front, be prepared if necessary to adjust schedule to avoid impacts on VECU reproduction if it looked like that was happening at this site and not elsewhere. Jessica was able to go ahead and complete that survey the last week. Thanks very much to her for turning that around so quickly. The good news there is that there are bugs present. They do appear to be reproducing. There are also lots of bugs present and appearing to be reproducing in nearby cinder that isn't disturbed. So the expectation is that we would be able to complete this project without any material impact on the populations. But as we get closer to ground disturbance at JCMT, we will need to go out there and look again. We'll also need to monitor for other projects happening around the same time that might also impact habitat. We don't know of anything of that sort right now, but we'll need to just keep track of things as we move along. All 4 of these sites are adjacent to structures, previously disturbed area, remote from, well, as remote as anything is on those sites from other types of things that we need to be careful of. Moving down into the project itself, got some photos here thanks to Stuart folks. This one here on the left shows the location of the cesspool at JCMT from above and then from ground level. Then we've got a photo of HP from above with the sites of the 3 cesspools there, and ground level pictures of each of those. So as I mentioned, there are 3 cesspools in this project that will be closed and filled. That work will be done by MKSS at Dorm A, at the maintenance building, and at the Longhouse. And in each case, they will remove the upper layer of material that's present over the cesspool lids at the maintenance building, Dorm A, remove the lid, remove the lid down below at the long building. We decided after some work with the engineer to go ahead and leave the cesspool linings in place for ground stability and to fill within the existing linings rather than excavating that hollow tile out. And the reason for that is just not to have a large collapse of the holes and potential impact on nearby structures and more ground disturbance as well, but primarily concerned about ground stability. That stability factor is also an issue at Dorm A because the cesspool is quite close to the site that we plan to use for the new teaching telescope, assuming that project moves forward. So that was a topic of some discussion with Kahuku-Mauna, some reservations expressed, but in the end, Kahuku-Mauna was prepared to see us move forward with the project in that form. The contractor portion of the work involves both the cesspool removal and holding tank installation at JCMT. At the maintenance building, we'll separate out the holding tank will go into a new hole, and I'll show you on a drawing in a minute here of how that's located. But for JCMT, because of the depths of the cesspool, the material it's in and whatnot, as well as the summit location, we felt better to take out everything that is there, fill the bottom of the hole up to where we need to lay the holding tank in, and then basically lay the holding tank into the same hole. At the maintenance building, with the deep cesspool that exists there, other structures in close proximity, the recommendation was close the cesspool and install the holding tank nearby. So that's the plan there. We will use basically the normal suite of protective measures that CMS requires for projects of this nature. This is the list that we started with. We've not added any along the way. If people see things that need to be added, we're certainly open to doing that. And that is the gist of the proposal itself. We think that we are comfortably within the DLNR evaluation criteria. This is a good thing for the mountain. And then the drawings. So this gives you the site of the cesspool at Dorm A, the Mamane tree nearby, and the location for the proposed teaching telescope. This shows the existing cesspool in section and the guidance from the engineer on how to close it. So basically, this top structure comes off. We backfill and tamp, and there's a layer of fabric under the top layer of fill that goes in over the top. At the maintenance facility, you see the facility is here, generator building, the cesspool over here. This shows the location plan for the new holding tank, kind of right between the maintenance facility and the generator building. The closure, the cesspool closure part of the project is basically identical to Dorm A. The holding tank looks something like this. Longhouse B, this has been unused for a while. It's a little bit shallower cesspool, a little different top structure, but basically the same approach. Take the top off, fill it, tamp it, cover it. This is also basically the same approach that was used when the cesspool at the other long building that was torn down was was closed as part of the ingress egress project. And then up at JCMT, location of the tank, specification for digging it out, and again, the holding tank to be installed. And that is the proposal. As I said, we talked to Kahukumauna, did a preliminary conversation with them at the end of last year. At that time, the plan had been to go with septic tank at the maintenance building, and also to put in a septic tank at Dorm A so that we could continue to use the plumbing there. Kahukumauna preferred that we go to zero discharge at HP as well as JCMT. So we made that change to a holding tank at the maintenance building. We made the decision simply to close the cesspool at Dorm A. That's not used much as a dorm, basically not used at all as a dorm. It will provide some office support, we anticipate, for the new teaching telescope. It's a few steps away from the common building, and we'll have people go use the restroom over there, and we'll just close the plumbing facilities in that. Environment Committee, as I said, we talked about bugs and protecting them. There's some questions about sludge removal. There is basically little to none. Inspections by stewards folks show the bottom of the holes are damp, but there isn't really any visible mess down there. So we will close those holes and essentially let anything that has seeped into the ground over the life of the cesspools to continue to remediate itself on site. And that is it. Questions?
I had a couple of questions. The explanation, I think I better understand why you're leaving the liner and HP cesspools, and if you have to remove it for the JCMT cesspool because the tank is considerably larger than the diameter of that hole. So don't you have an issue at the summit that you're trying to avoid?
No, there's a couple things at JCMT. One is that cesspool is quite a bit shallower than two of the three at HP. So we feel better about being able to take that lining out without having a big collapse. We will need a little bit bigger hole than the cesspool creates to put the holding tank in. But the major issue there is just where the cesspool is located and the depth. We think we can get everything out without causing collateral effects that would be a problem for us for nearby structures.
And the sludge that you mentioned earlier, that applies to all four sites?
Yeah, it's, as you know, these are soils that are pretty absorbent, so material does not stay in the bottom, and the idea of removing a bunch of soil from the mountain and trucking it off somewhere to dispose of seemed in the end to be at least as problematic, or more problematic than simply closing it and leaving it on site.
Last question is, there's a comment about requiring additional permits. Do you need county permits or other permits that have not been secured yet?
The only permits that we've identified as being required are the the Department of Health and DLNR. And we've asked the attorneys and the engineers very specifically about that. This is a there are people who do this kind of work a lot. And we have people of that sort working with us. So we feel pretty good about the advice we're getting.
Okay, so you don't need a permit from the county though to install a holding tank.
We've not identified anything other than the site plan approvals and the DOH.
I'm still processing the VECU bug situation. So you've discovered there are VECU bugs reproducing at the site at JCMT and in the surrounding habitat as well. And are you doing anything differently other than monitoring as a result of that?
Basically trying to minimize footprint was the recommendation. Don't be driving machinery around more broadly than you need to. Don't be driving machinery on the better habitat nearby. Try as much as we can to stick to that area right adjacent to JCMT and the cesspool where people park and whatnot.
Other questions from the board?
Yeah, I had a question about the cesspool at the Longhouse B. So the rebar, the rebar, iron cover, all of that's going to be removed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Does Kahukamana need to be consulted about the VECU bug tests results?
Yeah.
We will notify them. In actuality, I don't have the language right in front of me, but Jessica, when she completed her review, she actually concluded and recommended that the project could move forward. Correct me if I'm wrong, David. Given her assessment that there seems to be an abundance of VECU bugs in the surrounding areas that would likely migrate and populate this area again if they are impacted. So she was real clear on her recommendation that she thought the project could move forward. But we will advise Kahukamana of that change.
Yeah, that's correct, as to Jessica's report. Basically, she's looking at impacts on the population, not impacts on individuals. And the other part is, if they're reproducing now, I shouldn't speculate, but I hope that means that they're done reproducing for this year by the time we're actually disturbing ground at JCMT.
Okay. And the EC has had a look at this result and concurs with Jessica's recommendation.
I don't know if EC has seen the report because she just issued her report last week. But she is the primary contact to the EC. We'll make sure that they know about it too. I think this all came about because of her and Jesse basically flagging that issue in the original proposal.
Okay.
I actually don't anticipate there be an issue there.
Other questions from board members or anybody? I could use some guidance on procedure. We have a written proposal that's been described and essentially verbally amended. So if we're going to proceed with request for approval, I'm not quite sure how to do that.
So someone would need to make a motion to recommend approval of the project to move forward as amended, as discussed or described by David. We can certainly send the amended project proposal with this change to you folks. I think it was, you were using the revision for this for your review, right, David?
Yeah, that's what I scrolled through. It has worked out that these reviews have come together quite bang, bang, bang. So really appreciate the quick turnarounds, but got a little ahead of my my updating from the last meeting.
Okay. So on that basis, can I have a motion to approve the amended proposal as described by Dave Lombold?
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion about it? Okay, hearing no request for more discussion, can I have a vote in favor?
Aye.
Everybody say
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Unanimous vote in support of the proposal. So we go forward from there.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for the report.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Stuart.
Okay, moving right along to 6B, which was information and discussion regarding HR 33/HD1 regarding a working group for developing the recommendations for governance and management structure for Mauna Kea. How would you like to proceed on that one, Greg?
You know, as we know, there have been some recent developments that we heard about regarding Speaker Psyche's working group. I would actually, at this point, propose and make a motion if we could move into executive session to discuss items B and C on the 6B and C on the agenda, as they have to do with our role and our powers and authorities as an advisory group.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
Second.
We have a vote to go to the executive session. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're all in agreement, which I believe means we now switch to the other Zoom channel and we'll return back to the regular session afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll see you on the other channel.
See you on the other side.
Gary's with me, so he won't be signing on.
Okay. Everybody has to find the email from Carrie. Otherwise, they're going to go to the other site. And Wayne said 6:30, I think, was cut off. You're not trying to-
That was Wayne, but he stayed on a little longer.
Yeah, I noticed that. Give him another minute or so if he wants to rejoin. Otherwise, we're going to adjourn. And we never got a hold of Billy.
No.
That's
we
right.
were-
Everything's all right.
Yeah. It's unusual for him.
Yeah.
Jesse, did you say Gary is with you?
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and call to order again
Yeah.
the regular session. And move on to, looks like number 7 amongst on the agenda. Any announcements? Anyone like to make?
I have none.
Good. Okay, if not, I move that we adjourn. Anybody like to second that?
I'll
Second.
second.
Everybody say aye.
All right.
Alrighty. Okay, say hi to Roberta for me.
Will do.
And, we'll see, I guess the next meeting's in 2 weeks, right?
Next meeting's in 2 weeks. Yeah, and it's gonna be a special meeting and working on the agenda now.
Okay, sounds good. All right,
Okay.
thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.